You can't even afford rent, Mom sneered at the family meeting. You're embarrassing us. Right then, the realtor called to confirm the sale of their luxury apartment building. I put it on speaker. Yes, Miss Peterson, you now own the entire complex. The day started like any other Tuesday, except this one had been marked on our family calendar for weeks in bold red letters. Mandatory. F-A-N-I-L-Y. Me eating, 7 p.m., my mother's handwriting, always perfect, always demanding. I knew what was coming. They've been building up to this intervention for months. I pulled into the familiar circular driveway of my parents' estate in my beat-up Honda Civic, deliberately parking it right next to my sister Amanda's gleaming Tesla. The contrast wasn't lost on anyone. That was the point. I checked my phone one last time, 6:57 p.m. 3 text messages from my realtor, Marcus. All set for tomorrow. Paperwork complete. Congratulations on your new acquisition. I smiled faintly, tucked the phone away, and walked up to the grand entrance I'd grown up passing through. Before I could reach for the doorbell, the heavy oak door swung open. There stood my mother, Catherine Peterson, perfectly coiffed as always, her disapproving gaze sliding from my sensible flats to my simple black dress. "You're late," she said, though we both knew I wasn't. "Hello to you too, Mom." The living room was already full. Dad sat in his usual leather armchair, pretending to read the Wall Street Journal, but really just avoiding eye contact. Amanda perched on the edge of the designer sofa, manicured fingers tapping against her phone screen. Her husband James lounged beside her, radiating that particular smugness that came with marrying into money and never letting anyone forget it. "Olivia," Amanda said, barely glancing up, "we were starting to wonder if you'd show." I took a seat in the straight-back chair clearly left for me, the only uncomfortable piece of furniture in the room. Strategic positioning. Classic Mom. Place the target where everyone can stare them down. "Now that we're all here," Mom began, standing in the center of the room like a prosecutor addressing a jury, "we need to discuss Olivia's situation." My situation? That's what they've been calling it for months now. Choosing to leave my 6-figure corporate job to start my own business. Moving out of my luxury condo into a modest apartment. Driving a practical car instead of leasing something flashy. Living within my means while I build something of my own. "Your father and I have been patient," Mom continued, each word precise as a knife cut. "We understood you needed to get this entrepreneurial phase out of your system, but it's gone on long enough. You're becoming an embarrassment to this family." I didn't react. I'd learned long ago that showing emotion in this house was like bleeding in shark-infested waters. "The charity gala is next month," Amanda chimed in. "Everyone's asking what you do now. And it's mortifying having to explain that my sister lives in some tiny apartment and drives a car that's practically falling apart." James nodded sagely. "Image is everything in this circle, Olivia. You know that. We've decided." Mom declared that it's time for you to come back to reality. "Your father has spoken to his friends at Goldman. They're willing to overlook this gap in your resume. You can start next month." I looked at Dad, who suddenly found his newspaper fascinating. And Mom added with a tight smile, "We found you a lovely condo in the right neighborhood. Much more suitable than that hovel you're living in now. James's friend, Michael, is single, and he's already expressed interest in getting to know you better." Of course, he had. Michael Lambert, trust fund baby turned real estate developer, known for his ability to lose other people's money in spectacular fashion. I'd done my research on him months ago when he first approached me about investment opportunities. "Well," Mom prompted when I didn't immediately respond with gratitude, "what do you have to say for yourself?" I opened my mouth to respond, but my phone chose that moment to buzz. The caller ID read Marcus Reynolds. Perfect timing. "Excuse me," I said politely, "I need to take this." Before Mom could object, I put the call on speaker. "Miss Peterson," Marcus's professional voice filled the room. "I'm calling to confirm that the sale has been finalized. Congratulations. You are now the official owner of the Wellington complex. All 300 luxury units, including the penthouse currently occupied by your family, are under your sole ownership. Would you like me to proceed with the planned rent adjustments we discussed?" The silence that followed was absolute. Amanda's phone slipped from her fingers. James's smug smile froze and cracked. Dad's newspaper lowered slowly, revealing wide eyes. And Mom looked like she'd been slapped. "The Wellington," she whispered. "But that's we live there." "Yes," I said calmly. "You do. And now I own it." You see, while they thought I was failing, I was building. While they pitied me for living frugally, I was saving and investing. While they mocked my tiny business, it had grown into a property management empire, quietly acquiring buildings across the city. The Wellington was just the latest and most personal acquisition. But how?" Amanda stammered. "Those units cost millions." "Funny thing about living below your means," I said, standing up. "You end up having means beyond what people expect." I turned to Marcus's voice on the speaker. No rent adjustments needed right now, Marcus. Let's talk tomorrow about the renovation plans. Of course, Miss Peterson. Congratulations again. I ended the call and looked at my family's stunned faces. Now about that charity gala next month. I think I will attend after all. As the owner of the venue, I should probably make an appearance, don't you think? Mom sank into Dad's armchair, her perfect posture crumbling. Olivia, I don't understand. No, I said softly. You never did. And that's exactly why we're here. I picked up my sensible handbag and headed for the door, pausing only briefly. Oh, and Mom, about that hovel I live in. I own that building too, along with half the block. Now if you'll excuse me, I have an early meeting tomorrow with my property management team. The sound of my practical shoes on their marble floor echoed to the silence. As I reached for the door handle, I heard Dad's voice for the first time that evening. Olivia, wait. But I was already walking out, smiling as I climbed into my practical Honda Civic. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's success they never saw coming. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my actual office. Not the small rental space my family thought I worked from, but the entire top floor of the Peterson Business Center downtown, another property they didn't know I owned. Yet, I sat at my desk, reviewing the Wellington acquisition documents while my assistant, Sarah, briefed me on the morning schedule. Your mother has called 6 times since 6 a.m., she said, sliding a coffee across my desk. Your sister tried 4 times and your father's secretary called to set up an urgent lunch meeting. I took a sip of the coffee, perfect as always, and I followed your instructions. No calls forwarded, no meetings scheduled. Good. I pulled up the Wellington's financial records on my dual monitors, have Marcus send over the current lease agreements for all Wellington tenants, especially the penthouse. My phone buzzed again. Amanda. Olivia. This isn't funny anymore. Mom hasn't slept. Dad's furious. You need to explain yourself. We're family. You can't just let the message fade into my growing collection of unread texts. Family. Funny how that word only mattered when they needed something from me. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Miss Peterson? The board members are ready for you. I stood straightening my tailored charcoal suit. Designer, but subtly so. No flashy labels needed when you own the building. The boardroom fell silent as I entered. 12 of the city's top real estate developers, all men 50, all watching me with new eyes. No longer the naive little girl they dismissed for years. Now they saw me as what I'd become, their largest competitor. Gentlemen, I began, taking my seat at the head of the table. Let's discuss the future of downtown development. 2 hours later, I'd secured 3 new property deals and established myself as a force they couldn't ignore. As the last board member left, Marcus lingered. Your father's firm called, he said carefully. They're interested in a partnership on the Riverside development. I smiled. Of course they were. That project would reshape the city's skyline, and they just realized who controlled it. Tell them all partnership inquiries need to go through proper channels. No family favors. Marcus nodded, then hesitated. There's something else. Your sister's husband, James. He's been asking questions about your other properties, trying to map out your portfolio. Let him try. I turned to look out over the city, my city, increasingly. He'll only find what I want him to find. By afternoon, the family grapevine was buzzing. My phone showed 30 missed calls, dozens of messages, and one very interesting email from James to his business partners. Need dirt on Olivia's companies? Anything you can find. I forwarded it to my legal team with one note. Watch him. At 3 p.m., the expected text from Amanda arrived. Mom's organizing an emergency family dinner tonight. 7 p.m. You have to come. I replied for the first time that day. Can't. Board meeting for my newest acquisition. Send my regrets. There was no board meeting. Instead, I had a private dinner scheduled with George Lambert, Michael's father and the city's biggest developer, the man my mother had been trying to get an audience with for years. The restaurant was exclusive, the kind of place that didn't list prices because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. George was already seated when I arrived. Olivia. He stood, greeting me warmly. I have to admit, I've been looking forward to this. Not often someone builds an empire right under my nose without me noticing. I took my seat, accepting the wine list from the sommelier. Sometimes the best moves are the quiet ones. Indeed, he studied me thoughtfully. Your family seems quite surprised by your success. My son, Michael, was particularly interested in understanding how you managed it. Was he? I selected a wine, handed the list back, and here I thought he was only interested in losing other people's money in questionable developments. George laughed, actually laughed, sharp tone to match that sharp mind. You know, he's not used to being turned down. He's not used to a lot of things, like due diligence or profitable investments. The wine arrived, deep red and perfect. George raised his glass. To new partnerships? I met his eyes. That depends. Are you ready to discuss the Marina District project? His eyebrows rose. He'd kept that project under wraps for months. How did you? I make it my business to know things, Mr. Lambert. Like the fact that you're struggling to find financing since the environmental survey came back. I have a solution if you're interested. For the next 2 hours, we talked business. Real business. Not the social climbing my family thought I'd abandon my career for. By dessert, we'd outlined a partnership that would transform the city's waterfront and make us both considerably richer. As we wrapped up, George's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and chuckled. Your mother just invited me to dinner next week. Quite insistent about it. Let me guess. She mentioned her talented daughter would be there. Actually, she mentioned your sister, Amanda. Something about her brilliant investment strategies. I couldn't help but laugh. Mom was still playing matchmaker, still pushing Amanda forward as the family success story. She hadn't realized the game had changed. Give her my regrets, I said, standing. I'll be in Singapore next week, closing a deal. George stood as well, extending his hand. You know, Olivia, I've been in this business 30 years. Made my fortune the old-fashioned way, family money and connections. But you built this yourself in secret, while your own family underestimated you. That's remarkable. I shook his hand firmly. Thank you, George, though I should thank them too. Being underestimated can be a powerful advantage. Outside, my driver waited with the car, not the Honda Civic my family knew, but a sleek black Mercedes I kept for business meetings. As we pulled away, my phone lit up with another message, this time from my father. Olivia, please. We need to talk. Things don't have to be like this. We're family. I stared at those last 2 words for a long moment. Family. They kept using that word, but I don't think it meant what they thought it meant. Opening my laptop, I pulled up the Wellington lease agreements. Time to review the terms of my family's penthouse rental. After all, business was business, and I'd learned from the best how to separate family from finances. Tomorrow would bring more calls, more demands, more attempts to regain control. But for now, I had contracts to review and an empire to run. Let them have their emergency family dinner without me. I had bigger tables to sit at. 1 week later, I stood in my office, watching the sunset paint the city skyline in shades of gold. Singapore had been productive. 3 new deals closed, 2 international partnerships secured. But the real drama was waiting for me back home. Sarah appeared in the doorway. They're all here. I nodded, taking one last look at the empire I'd built in the main conference room. Yes, your mother, father, sister, James, and Mr. Lambert. That last name made me pause. George Lambert? No. Sarah smiled slightly. Michael. He insisted on being included. Said something about family interests. Of course, he did. Mother's matchmaking hadn't died, even after everything. If anything, my success had made her more determined to push us together. The conference room fell silent as I entered. They sat around the massive oak table. Mother in her perfect channel suit, Dad looking tired but determined, Amanda clutching James's arm like a lifeline, and Michael Lambert, trying to project confidence he didn't have. Thank you all for coming, I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. I understand you have concerns. Mother spoke first, her voice tight. Concerns? You disappear for a week. Ignore our calls. And now we find out you're partnering with George Lambert on the Marino project. This isn't like you, Olivia. I raised an eyebrow. Actually, Mother, this is exactly like me. You just never bothered to notice. Now see here. James leaned forward. All false authority. We've been looking into your companies. The structures are unnecessarily complex. Multiple holding companies, offshore accounts. What are you hiding? Nothing, I said calmly. I just learned early on to protect my interests. Speaking of which, I pressed a button on the intercom. Sarah, please send in the auditors. The door opened, and 2 men in suits entered, carrying thick folders. James's face went pale. What is this? He demanded. An audit, James. Of all attempts to access my company records in the past week, including your rather clumsy efforts to hack into our servers, I opened one of the folders. Section 47B of your Wellington lease agreement specifically prohibits corporate espionage against the building owner. That would be me. Amanda gasped. James, what did you do? Nothing illegal, he protested. I was protecting our family interests. Your family interests? I smiled coldly. Or your hidden debts? Yes, James. I know about those too. The gambling losses, the failed investments, the money you've been siphoning from Amanda's trust fund. Amanda turned to him, face shocked. What is she talking about? Don't listen to her. James stood up, pointing at me. She's trying to turn us against each other. She's just jealous because she had to scratch and claw her way up while you what? I cut in. While you lost millions? Why you lived off my sister's money? Please continue. Mother intervened. Olivia, stop this. We're family. Whatever James has done. Family? I opened another folder. Like when you tried to pressure the Wellington's management company to break their contract with me once you realized I was the buyer. Or when you called George Lambert to warn him against partnering with me. Dad finally spoke up. We were protecting you. You don't understand the business world. No, Dad, you don't understand. Not anymore. I stood walking to the window. While you were all playing social games, I was building something real. Every property you thought was out of your reach, I own it. Every deal you couldn't close, I funded it. Every client you lost, they came to me. Michael Lambert chose that moment to speak. This is why you should have partnered with me when you had the chance. Together, we could. Could what? I turned back to face them. Lose money like you always do. Tell me, Michael, does your father know you're here? Does he know you're trying to interfere with our marina project deal? His face reddened. My father doesn't control me. No. But I could. One phone call about your attempted corporate espionage, and your family would cut you off completely. Shall I make that call? He fell silent. I pressed another button, and a screen descended from the ceiling. Let me show you something. Images appeared. Properties, developments, financial charts. This is what I've built. Not through family connections or inherited wealth, but through work. Real work. The numbers were staggering. Even Mother looked shocked. The Wellington? I continued. That was just the beginning. I own half the commercial real estate in the business district, 3 luxury residential complexes, the new downtown development project, and yes, the marina project with George Lambert. But why keep it secret? Amanda asked quietly. Why let us think you were struggling? I looked at my sister, really looked at her. Behind the designer clothes and perfect makeup, I saw something new. Fear. Not of me, but of her own situation. Because, Amanda, you all needed to see something. Not just my success, but your own prejudices. How quickly you dismissed me. How easily you believed I was failing just because I wasn't living by your rules. I sat back down, opening one final folder. Now we have decisions to make. First, the Wellington. Your leases are up for renewal next month. James's corporate espionage voids his automatically. But the rest of you, you wouldn't evict your own family, Mother said, but her voice wavered. No. I agreed. I wouldn't. Instead, I'm offering you a choice. I slid documents across the table. New leases, fair market rate, no special treatment, no family discounts, or what? Dad asked. Or you start treating me like family. Real family. Not someone to be controlled or married off or pushed aside, an equal. The room was silent as they looked at the papers. Amanda, I said softly, there's a position open in my company, Vice President of Client Relations. You're qualified. And more importantly, you're smarter than the role your husband and our parents pushed you into. It's yours if you want it. James started to protest, but Amanda held up her hand. I want to hear more. As for you, Dad, I continued, Goldman isn't the only game in town. My international division could use your experience as a consultant, not a controller. He picked up the contract, reading carefully. And Mother, I smiled slightly, the charity gala you love so much, the venue's paid for permanently. Consider it a gift from one businesswoman to another. She blinked rapidly, touching her perfect makeup. James, Michael, there's the door. Your security passes have been revoked. They started to argue, but my security team was already there waiting quietly. The rest of you have 24 hours to decide, not about the leases or jobs, but about what kind of family we want to be. One that tears each other down or one that builds each other up. I stood gathering my papers. I have a dinner meeting with George Lambert. Amanda, if you're interested in that VP position, join us. We can discuss the details. As I walked out, I heard Amanda's chair scrape back. I'll get my coat. Mother called after me. Olivia, wait. I paused at the door. Yes, the Honda Civic. Was that just for show too? I smiled. No, Mother, that's my car. Because success isn't about what you drive or where you live. It's about what you build. I checked my watch. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an empire to run. The next morning, I arrived early at my office. Sarah met me with coffee and updates. Amanda accepted the position. Your father's reviewing the consulting contract. And your mother? Yes, she's in the lobby. Says she wants to learn, really learn this time. I looked out at my city, thinking about family power and the quiet strength it takes to succeed on your own terms. Center up, I said. It's time for some real family business. Sometimes the biggest victories aren't in what you own, but in what you change. And as I watched the sunrise over my city, I knew the real work, the work of rebuilding my family into something stronger, was just beginning. But this time, we built it together on my terms.